The Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. In episode 22, Nicoleta Porojanu discusses with us transgenerational trauma and domestic violence.
It's unbelievable. I feel that in a way our ancestors live through us because we have their genes, we have evolutionary, we have their experience in us. This is how they've learned to survive, and that's in us. So when we heal our traumas, we don't really heal our own pain. We heal our entire ancestry somehow, gradually, because I say it all the time in every family, at least this has been my learning. I'm just a humble human being. I don't know everything. I'm just learning on the go. There's no manual for life, really. We just learn every day. But what I've learned is that in every family, there is someone that is probably chosen or has chosen themselves to awaken, to be the first one that properly awakens.
The Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. The Healing Through Love podcast with host Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson would love to acknowledge Global Glamping Charities Incorporated for generously supporting this podcast. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all of its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host today, Sharlene Lynch from sharlenelynch.com. And we have a beautiful guest with us today. Her name is Nicoleta. The sound of her name is like music. It's like poetry. She's got a long list of credentials that we're going to dive in deep to have a look at. Now, through her creative therapy practice, she inspires Open to Happiness podcast and the Significant You mental health charity, which she's founded. So we're going to dive in and find out a little bit more about that as well. Nicoleta empowers happiness seekers to transition from confusion and trauma and pain to genuine clarity, happiness, and fulfillment in life. I'm excited to dive in deep to the modalities that she serves. Hi, Nicoleta. How are you?
Hello, Sharlene. I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's a privilege and a pleasure to have you with us today. Now, Nicoleta, could you help our listeners and tell us where in the world are you from?
I was born in Romania, in Central Eastern Europe. And for the past 15 or 16 years now, I have lived in the UK, in London, and I'm enjoying this very much.
Oh, that's beautiful. So here in Australia, it's 8:30 at night. I'm just curious, what time of the day is it over there?
Well, it's only 10 a.m. in the morning. It's just the beginning of the day. It's interesting how we find ourselves in different parts of the world. And yeah, it feels like...
It's so beautiful. It really does go to show that, time is a construct and it's all relative and it's all, is it really reality? It's absolutely fascinating. And it's such a privilege and a pleasure to have you with us today, all the way from the UK. Look, nobody does what you do, which is a very powerful healing modalities, many of them, without a burning desire to make impact and change for the world. And I have to ask, there must be a story behind it. Are you okay to talk about it?
No, absolutely. Sure. Yeah. I feel that our pain wasn't just accidental. Whatever we've been through to life, it's part of a much larger story and we should share it. So I've always said that we cannot really go through life untouched, and many of us experience trauma early in life or even later in life. And in my experience, early life trauma, but any kind of trauma really, even when we experience that in adult life, it's somehow poisoning our lives to the level of our physiology, really, to the level of the cell. And trauma doesn't really have to be a very visible, an overt event, as we call it in psychology. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical abuse. It can be psychological abuse or sexual abuse or domestic abuse. I am aware that this is what you're doing. It could also be unintentional neglect, emotionally unavailable parents. It can be living with addictive parents or spouses, maybe witnessing abuse in the family dynamic like I did when I was very young. It could be separation or divorce. It can be poverty, maybe discrimination or inequality, which we see a lot these days, and different other adverse childhood experiences. We call them ACEs. And what they do to us and what they did to me, and probably you can relate, and many of our watchers and listeners, they make us feel like we are not being seen, we are not being considered. And of course, in time, all of these events, even if they last just for a few seconds, they become covert traumatic experiences, and naturally they remain in our luggage, and somehow they stay in the way of our happiness, they stay in the way of our fulfillment in life. So that's my story. This is where I'm coming from, and I'm very happy to share it.
Oh, Nicoleta, thank you. If I look back on the list of traumas that I've endured, as many of our listeners have, as you're all somewhere on your healing journey, in the early days when I was just a child, I didn't even know they were trauma. I, in some points, didn't even know they weren't normal, and just continued and carried on. Now at 56, I can see, you know, if we put a space between the thought and the action, we have that level of awareness as to what's happening, and we can act differently. For our listeners that are still on their journey, have you got any tools or techniques or hints or that they can bring awareness to what's happening and help them move forward faster or move forward with more grace?
Yes, I have. I mean, for my entire life, I was interested in really understanding my own experience and understanding what's happening around me. I was, since I was quite young, very interested in understanding my parents' dynamic, my family, what's been happening out there. And I was comparing them with other people around me. So I've been interested in psychology and understanding the nature of life and human existence since I was very, very young. And then obviously I qualified as a psychologist and psychotherapist myself. And I've studied for 30 years, formal education, I mean. And out of these, 15 have been in psychology and psychotherapy. And that shows that I was obviously very interested in finding ways to heal myself and maybe help others heal themselves. And I have learned, it took me a long, long time. You're right, it is a journey. And I have learned a way of actually moving through this journey a little bit smoother and maybe a little bit quicker, and not allowing the pain to be a constant in our lives. And I this is the basis of my framework in terms of working with clients, but I'm also leading my life through this. So my framework is called The 7 Steps of Real Transformation, and I'm going to be offering a short ebook that explains a little bit about this framework, and it's like a blueprint really. And we're going to leave that in the notes of your podcast for the watchers and the listeners if they want to download it for free and maybe start reading about it. And this framework has really 7 steps that lead to transformation. So step 7 is transformation. And before that, it's healing. So healing really, it's not something that we can achieve in our conceptual mind by saying, well, I'm going to heal today, everything will be fine. And everything that happened in my past is now a memory. That might work for a second or two, or for a minute, or maybe for a little bit as we keep entertained and distracted in our very vibrant world. But the past is coming back all the time. So healing is not really something that happens in the mind. I always say healing happens at the core of our being. So healing needs to be part of what's going on in our physical body, in our material parts of existence. Healing happens in our mind because we make sense of it and we need to comprehend what healing is about. But the remaining part, which we don't really consider sometimes, is the healing in our soul, in our spirit, in our heart, in our energy, or whatever you want to call it. And that's what happens in our emotions, in our feelings that have been hurt, because this is how we experience pain and trauma, in our emotions. And then naturally we become aware of it through the mind and we feel it in our physiological sensations. So healing is step 6 in my framework, in the way I understand healing. But before that, there are other 5 steps that are very important, and every single one of them actually unlocks another door towards the next one. And for me, my first step is understanding. I don't feel you can actually heal if you don't understand your family history, if you don't understand how trauma traveled through generations in your ancestry, because most likely no pain, no experience, no event started with our parents, for example, or with us. Everything was there before. They witnessed that somewhere. They've learned that from somewhere. They had that in their genetic memory. We have it in our evolutionary memory. And naturally, we have it in our karmic memory, so in our destiny, in how we choose to act and react. So this is passed over through the generations, and this is why we call it transgenerational trauma. And it comes in unhealthy patterns of thinking and behavior. And you see, they remain like imprints in our being. And unless we become aware of them, they continue to be part of our lives. And from understanding, naturally, just to take you briefly and close this and allow you to maybe guide me further, it's easier when you understand to accept something. If you don't have any understanding of someone is doing something to you, it's very hard to understand, to accept. So acceptance comes naturally from understanding. And when we accept it, then we somehow let it be in the past. We let go. We don't feel like it's happening right now. So we surrender to what was. We look at it from distance and we say, well, that's my experience. That happened to me when I was young or when I was younger. And when you let go, when you surrender to what was, you've learned actually to surrender to what is. You understand your ability to control the environment surrounding you. You understand that you can only control yourself. And that's still quite limited. And you have no say, not much to say really in what's going on around, what other people do, how the world is moving, what the systems of the world do to us all. And then from step 3, surrender and let go, it's easier to learn some lessons, to understand why this happened to you, because it didn't happen for nothing. I'm following the Eastern spirituality traditions. And I truly believe that Buddhists were right when they said everything is a lesson, not a condemnation or a sentence. So when you learn the lessons that were brought onto your path, it makes it easier for you to extract meaning from your pain. So your pain was not for, just random. It happened for a reason. You're learning this and you're taking this further. And very often we learn that from our pain, we learn a beautiful lesson about helping others, about transforming ourselves. And we move naturally towards the 5th step, which is forgiveness. I feel that you need to understand, accept, let it be in the past, and learn some lessons before you can forgive. Forgiveness, again, is not happening just in the mind, in the intellect. It's happening in our wholeness. The body needs to be willing to forgive the hurt that it experienced. The soul needs to be willing to embrace that, because that's quite a heavy feeling to have in you. Forgiveness is somehow not necessarily radical, but it means I'm done with this, at least for a little bit. So I'm moving towards a larger sense of forgiveness. And that naturally moves us towards healing. So we really need to forgive in order to heal. We need to learn something in order to forgive. I'm taking you back now to the steps. And then in order to learn, you need to look at it from distance. So you need to let go and surrender to what was. And in order to do that, you need to accept it. And to accept it, you need to understand. So this is how the circle is closing. That's roughly my 7 steps of real transformation. That's how I work. That's how I manage to heal myself. I've learned everything through my own experience, and I'm very happy to share it with the world now.
I love it. Absolutely. Life happens for us, not to us on every level. And I love that you talked about forgiveness. On the night that my beautiful baby boy took his own life, I was praying that we would be able to bring him back. And even the ambulance officers were unsuccessful. And so I was still praying, and I heard one word, which was the answer to my prayers. And it was very loud. It was audible. I thought everyone could hear it, and it was forgive. So I understand. That put me, that night I forgave my baby for his choice, and that put me in a completely different healing cycle than everyone else around me, that I was able to forgive him that night. And so it really allowed me to be in a different frequency to help others to move through who had to go through all the stages of grief. And not to say that I didn't bawl my eyes out or do all the things that mothers do in this position, but I was able to come in at a different frequency. So I understand the power of forgiveness and how healing it is and how necessary it is for us to be able to move forward and heal. You know, sometimes we need to forgive ourselves, sometimes we need to forgive others, but you know, the power of forgiveness it's so tangible. It's real. There's no question about it. I love that you talked about intergenerational, and it took me some time to sort of get that one. And interestingly, I found that I didn't even know the ages of my parents and my grandparents when the things happened to them. And it wasn't until years down the track, as I'm unpacking my life and how I worked and what happened in my life, that I figured it out, that the generational, like, for instance, my grandmother committed suicide at 38. My mother had a nervous breakdown at 38. I had a nervous breakdown at 38. But I didn't know this until afterwards when I was unpacking how I got to where I am. And and it's not, I've got hundreds of examples of the same thing. So obviously it's a reality, whether you believe it or not. This is how it is, that we get to relearn those lessons we get to learn them for the first time sometimes if we're the first in the entire generation to have solved it. And I believe, I don't know how, I don't know the science behind it, but I believe it helps the generations that have gone before, and it helps the generations that are to come. Now, I don't have any science for it, but I really feel it to be true. I felt a really lightening of the heart and lightening of my soul when I was able to overcome things like alcoholism and hoarding and other things that have been generational curses, if you like, or generational patterns. And I know that I've shifted that for future generations. Absolutely powerful.
So amazing. It's unbelievable. I feel that in a way our ancestors live through us, because we have their genes, we have evolutionary, we have their experience in us. This is how they've learned to survive, and that's in us. So when we heal our traumas, we don't really heal our own pain, we heal our entire ancestry somehow, gradually. Because I say it all the time, in every family, at least this has been my learning. I'm just a humble human being. I don't know everything. I'm just learning on the go. There's no manual for life, really. We just learn every day. But what I've learned is that in every family, there is someone that is probably chosen or has chosen themselves to awaken, to be the first one that properly awakens and becomes aware of the true nature of reality. As you mentioned, to go back and unpack the past and look through the experiences, through hints and cues that talk to us from somewhere there, without being present, without hearing it through noise, but talk in a way that is more powerful, really, that gives us proper wisdom And probably you are the first one that has awakened in your family through pain and suffering and everything that happened in your life. The hardship that you mentioned has been there for a reason, to bring you closer to this awakening where you really see more than what's in your physical world. You connect with dimensions that are not really visible. Whilst most of the people on earth go through their own journey and find themselves somewhere different, many identify with the physical world and this program mind. And for us, those that are now, I consider myself one of them, because that's how I've learned about all of this. And I observe that I'm hearing and I'm learning from you that you're one of them. We are the ones that have awakened for a reason. And whilst we work on our own traumas, we can heal all generations. I'm working now healing my son, because part of what I had in me has been transferred onto him, even in ways of conversations and discussions and ways of raising a child. I wasn't a fully conscious parent. I don't think I am right now fully, but anyway, I'm making progress. I'm doing well. I'm more conscious than I used to be when I was young. So yeah, it's a beautiful mission that we have. I think all of us.
I do. I think this is the era, though. I think, again, I don't have any research or scientific proof, but I feel that there's more people on the planet in this time than ever has been before that are awake. I feel that the frequency of the planet is rising, and then I feel just like the 100 monkeys, that when enough of us reach that tipping point of the higher frequency, we will lift the tide for everybody and help everyone into a new level of understanding and awakening. I don't have research, but I just feel it. I feel it.
Yeah, I feel it too. And I feel that, especially over the past years with the pandemic and everything that happened, the level of collective consciousness is raising all the time. And more people are getting interested in talking about this dimension that goes beyond our physical world. And that's beautiful, because this is how we elevate our vibration. This is how we choose to operate from somewhere different, from the vibration of love and connection and kindness and understanding.
Yes.
And that's why it is important to work on ourselves, to become aware of our journey, which is quite difficult these days with everything that's going on. Everything moves so fast with the digital world.
It is. And we can still observe without being involved in it. And we don't need to. I know as a survivor myself that I have got myself caught in the quagmire of social media, of all of the you should, shouldn'ts. Even back in the day before we had social media, it was girly magazines and other things that were telling us how to think and do and behave. And now, being the ripe old age of 56, I can look back at these things and give space between thought and action. And just I love, my favorite saying is, isn't that interesting? So that gives me a bit of an opportunity to not necessarily do those patterns that I used to do, which is dive in and become emotionally attached to those things. Gives me that space that I need, because I'm still a work in process, as we all are, moving towards, a higher frequency. I have to ask you about your thoughts about gratitude, because it's one of the things I talk about all the time, is gratitude, and how that helped me heal, understanding that gratitude has such a high frequency, right up there with joy and love. What do you have opinions about gratitude, or do you have a gratitude practice that you do?
I do have a mindful ritual, which I'm practicing myself every day, at least twice a day, when I get up, when I wake up in the morning and before I fall asleep. And I'm teaching my clients as well to practice this, and it's been amazing. Obviously, it's something that I somehow developed in time. It has 6 steps. It involves a little bit of meditation, a little bit of breath work, some energy work, inner and outer energy work, and a mantra. And I feel that gratitude is on the vibration of love. I feel that gratitude is love. I mean, the only emotion. I'm learning a lot from the ancient traditions, and it feels like all of them talk about the same thing, but we don't really get ready to listen until we are ready for that big story. I feel that the only emotion is love, the positive emotion towards the high end of frequencies and consciousness is just love. And love means acceptance, and love means kindness and care and compassion and tolerance. And of course, gratitude and appreciation for life. And I feel that without gratitude, without appreciating this moment and being grateful for what you have, you would position yourself on a very low vibration where you're just lacking all the time. You're just complaining about what you don't have. I feel that a balanced approach would require somehow, I don't know, a sense of equilibrium between what you're grateful for and maybe what you're not very pleased with. Because you can't, I feel that very often, because of how psychology has somehow shaped us, and you spoke about not having proof and evidence. Psychology is a relatively young science, and science for us means measurable and something visible, something that can be quantified. But coming back to that, in psychology, we can't really do much of this because humans are so complex. We are such beautiful creations and so fluid in the way we change and develop with the world every second, in every single aspect of life.
That's true.
And I'm feeling sometimes that in the way we look at personality, at our social persona, which is our false sense of identity, it's this nice picture that we're bringing into the world through our roles, like us in this podcast today. Then I might change and go into a client session. I'm becoming the therapist, and I might talk with my family. I'm just the daughter or the sister or somewhat different. You know what I mean? Then I get out of the house. I'm just the neighbor for my neighbor. So all of these roles, this personality, this social persona, in which we drag our body, mind, and soul, our true self, they are somehow misconstrued. They are not real. They are just illusions that we have in our mind. And because we're so stuck with this false identity, with what we think personality is, we think of ourselves as being something very clear, very, very easy to explain and present to others. In reality, life and human being and human existence happen on a continuum of experience. It's not polarized. It's not black and or white. It's much more than that. It's everything in between, or both ends at the same time. So on this continuum of experience, we can be very grateful for everything that is amazing and magnificent in our lives right now, in each moment. Or we can be a bit more, shall we say, able to acknowledge that not everything is extraordinary, and there are things that are still unpleasant, and connect with that lower side of the continuum of experience, where there is, unpleasant emotion, there are unpleasant events going on in the world. We hear it in the media, even if they don't happen in our surroundings. So gratitude is very important, because without it, we don't see the beauty of life. We don't really connect with life. Life is that. Life is gratitude, and gratitude is love. Life, it's just being present in the here and now, being mindful, being aware of how fantastic this is, this gift that we're having. And of course, that doesn't really cancel everything else, because people, because of this kind of polarized way of thinking, people position themselves somewhere in one of the two. I think we are everywhere in between, and we can permit ourselves to move fluidly through every single human experience and an event, knowing that we are whole, we are fine, we will survive, we have the resources that we need, and we will move through everything. Starting from the domestic abuse, in my case, I'm here now. My previous versions are there. I can engage with them when I have the time, when they need my support, when I still need to do a little bit more healing. But otherwise, I'm present here. in my 50s, just like you, handling life, enjoying it much more than I used to when I was younger, because I was a lot in my mind. I was trapped there, identified with the mental space, which is our real prison. And yes, gratitude is important as a practice. I think gratitude is allowing yourself to be here now. Because if you're not here now, you can't be grateful for this beautiful gift, for everything around you, for everything in you.
It's so true, Nicola. Gratitude makes what we have enough. And that doesn't mean that we don't want for more, but it still makes what we have enough. And I believe that when we can hold that frequency of what we do have is enough, then it actually allows us to manifest more. So I think it's the thinking about the not having is the challenge, as a woman who did go through being homeless and everything else that happened in between. I really understand now that gift of gratitude is just being grateful for what you do have, and that allows more to come. So, because it's just all frequency, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I love the work of Joe Dispenza. Are you a fan?
I'm not familiar with this work.
Okay, excellent. So, I look towards his work as far as the research in and around psychology, because he's done so much work on really mapping the brain and also having a really close look of giving evidence, like scientific evidence, to support the processes that we understand in psychology. I find it fascinating work, absolutely fascinating. I was just curious to see if you're a fan, because you've got so many beautiful modalities. Can you share with our audience some of your amazing modalities that you share with your clients?
Well, in 15 years, studying in 2 different countries, because I had to start from scratch when I moved to London, with another psychology degree, and then training in psychotherapy and counseling and so on. With so many years of studies, you kind of learn a lot, and it's kind of the same thing. It's repeating, because psychology is not a huge science. It's very limited. So we have basically in psychology 3 major schools of thought. We have the psychoanalysis, starting with Freud. Then we have the humanistic school with Carl Rogers and Maslow and all of the others. And we have the cognitive behavior from Aram Beck and Ellis and many others in the Gestalt and transactional analysis, part of humanistic and then cognitive behavior. So these 3 major schools of thought, we have techniques and tools in every single one of them that people can actually learn for themselves. They don't need to go through a formal process of psychotherapy, but it's good if they get a little bit of guidance and support, at least at the beginning, until they understand what's happening. And I have worked over the past years a lot with the transpersonal psychology, which is the 4th major school of thought in psychology, which naturally goes beyond this dimension that we are used to consider in the physical world and through the mental space that is always getting programmed and reprogrammed and conditioned and reconditioned, and naturally to a certain extent brainwashed, because you can only capture what's being given to you. If you live in Australia, you will naturally be influenced by your inner surroundings, your immediate surroundings, and then you will learn some stuff that are allowed through media to arrive in Australia. Otherwise, that's how the conditioning works. It's a different kind of life to be born in Uganda or in other places. So in terms of modalities that I've studied and I practice, I'm quite integrative. When I was young, I thought that Freud is everything. It's simply God. But I still, obviously, I've been waking up from that delusion in time. When I started to study CBT in the early 2000s, I've done my first master course in CBT, and I thought, Freud is nothing. This is the real thing. Combined with hypnotherapy, it worked really good for a while. But then I've realized that it's not everything. It doesn't respond to every single life inquiry, and it can't help everyone. So it's not just what's going on in the mind. It's not just the early years of life. Although I'm still working with a lot of psychoanalytic tools and psychodynamic tools, some of them are very important. You need to be able to understand what's happened in your first years of life, how your personality was formed, how your character was formed, and who are you in this world eventually. And then naturally, I loved the humanistic school with Gestalt and transactional analysis, talking about the 3 ego states, which are so simple and practical. You can teach a 10-year-old. You identify when you are the child, looking for attention, being a little bit naughty, and pushing the boundaries all the time, trying to test the waters and discover the world. Or you are the critical parent, establishing rules and boundaries, and this is how it is, and imposing a little bit of power and control. Or you become an adult where you function in a very adjusted way, understanding, being present and understanding, the circumstances and acting appropriately to what's going on around to that specific situation. I feel this is very important. CBT is good if you understand the ABC model. That's still enough. Understanding that between the event, which we call A, and your emotion, which is C, there's always something in between. And that B is your cognition, what you make of it, your core belief, which is very often distorted by the world. So every single tool that I'm working with, it's important, but I moved past psychology and psychotherapy in time. I had to understand that quantum physics now talks about, which is the new physics, talks about the energy surrounding us, the energy that we are, because we are basically in every single cell in the DNA. When they open up the atom, they find, even if they go to the nucleus, to the core of it, they find 99.99% energy. That's it. There's nothing there. How we perceive life in the material world this way, it's a huge story. I leave it for the people that come from that world to talk about it. But it's very important. In a way, this new science is confirming what the ancient teachings have always told us. 15,000 years ago, the Vedas, the Hindu scriptures were talking about this, but we didn't believe it. And then even closer to us, in the other cultures, they spoke about this, but we didn't believe it. The epigenetics now, because we've uncovered the human genome, tells us that our genes are not static. They can be activated or not according to the environment, our inner environment, the outer environment. Logotherapy is teaching us about how to find purpose in life from the stories of the people that have been through Holocaust and have survived, and explains why some of them didn't get out of the bed or what was a bed on those days, and others did. So without purpose, we are kind of lost. The Eastern spirituality traditions teach us to stop this mind, which gets crazy, so we can get a little bit of peace and connection with the self. And so on. As much as we continue exploring, anthropology is teaching us about our human history. If we don't understand that, we're not going to understand domestic abuse. But if we remember that we are primates, we are part of a group of 200 primates, types of animals in the world, and we are in a way driven by our instincts, then it makes it easy to understand why, in the lack of awareness, someone would physically or emotionally abuse another, and so on. So I'm moving past psychology and psychotherapy. I'm integrating different other disciplines, which I found in my work, in my experience, to be absolutely necessary, and they work really well together. There is a bridge between them, and they explain human life and human existence much easier, and they help us all to get to understand ourselves, to get to accept our inheritance. That's what's been given to us. You can't change it. I'm here, you're there. I look like this, you look like that. I think this way, you think that way. Well, we get into the territory where we can make a change. Yeah, because now we're accepting and we're learning, and we look from distance, and we forgive what's happened and what's about to happen, and it's not in our control. And then we heal and we transform into who we want to be. So I feel that an integration of all of these modalities is working much better than focusing on one. But that's fine. Everyone is on a journey. 20 years ago, I was just stuck in one, and I thought that's what needs to happen. But people nowadays, are so interested in expansion and are boundless in a way. They want to understand more. They want to connect more. And I find that the benefit of the digital world is just that. It allows us to connect.
It does.
In different ways.
It allows us to share our stories, our healings, our thoughts. And collectively, I like to believe it's raising the frequency of the planet and helping us all heal and move forward. I love everything that you've said today. I find you absolutely fascinating. I would say go and check out Joe Dispenza. He does some great work on epigenetics and also quantum physics. And he helps put the science behind the psychology as well. It's a fascinating human.
I will.
Yes, and I am going to be sharing your beautiful link, which is the 7 steps for fear transformation. Is that right? Yes.
7 steps of real transformation. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. And so we'll be sharing those in the show notes. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to spend quality time with you. You, Nicoleta, are a fascinating human being. And thank you so much for being our special guest here today with Healing Through Love. And for our listeners, you know that we've got a live event coming up very soon where we've got local businesses who are coordinating to create a day spa experience for you with facials, with massages, with healings, with makeovers, with, you think day spa, it's going to be there. We've got 25 exhibitors that are going to be holding the space for you to heal, and it's all for free. If you're listening to this podcast and you're from another state or country, then reach out to us at Healing Through Love, either myself or Rose Davidson, because we're looking for people to partner with us in other states and countries so that we can carry this beautiful day of pampering to other countries and other states. Thank you for joining us. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.